Without games, there is no life. The title leads into the obsession of its otaku main characters, who have no reason to live without their passions. They take many things from their games, including escapism and entertainment, but they are also an avenue for displaying greater knowledge and understanding, perhaps best exemplified in the materialization word game, where the blank overcame Jibril, who, even in her defeat, did not fully understand her failure. As reality was deconstructed around her, she thought back to the atomic bomb first summoned, dismissing the rest of the struggle as meandering nonsense. But even if the blank was meandering, there was an important hint within that to the ultimate plan and how they utilized interplay. Jibril only saw knowledge as disconnected pieces of a collection, matched by her straightforward play in the word game, by and large direct or responsive. But through an understanding of physics and reality, the blank deconstructed the world step by step, using their knowledge to steadily build the way to the climax. Just as before, they'd built up the wholesome ecchi scene through step-by-step dematerialization of indecent biology. Because Jibril dismissed the information received through Blank's style of play, she was soundly defeated. The elements in play might have been trashy, but that added layer is exactly why it was dismissed. Similarly, games themselves are an added layer atop the reality they abstract and represent. All art serves as a recreation of some aspect of reality, with games and their inherent mechanical limitations being echoes of the restrictions nature places on the player, or the rules of society through laws and regulations. This allows for a game to explore some aspect of reality as any piece of art does by its very nature. In a contest for the Crown of Elkia, Blank and Clammy took on the roles of a ruler, commanding common soldiers. It originally appeared to be a simple game of chess, but the addition of charisma as an actual mechanic lessened the nature of its abstraction, becoming even closer to the reality it represented. The original rules break down because life itself has fewer rules, and the board allowed for an exploration of ideologies between the players involved. Clammy recognizes the weaknesses of humanity, but her solution is subservience.
イマニティが生き残るには大国の庇護下で生存権利を手に入れ、その後はあらゆる勝負を放棄して一切を閉ざす。これしかないの。
Only having reached this point through collusion with an outside nation, she effectively cannot trust humanity on its own, controlling her pieces with absolute authority and force. The Blank, however, has more belief in the potential of humanity, and through pointing out the weaknesses of the opposing side, they inspire a revolt in the forces of their enemy, pushing Clammy to double down on her beliefs and crumble by inspiring the gamified version of humanity to fight on its own. The Blank is able to achieve the Fool King's ideals, showing that humanity can stand on its own through knowing weakness and coming to make up for it, not through willing obedience to a larger power, but wisdom and understanding, allowing them to earn the crown he sought to pass down. But again, even though it was closer to reality than the original version, it was still just a game. Our world isn't as kind as this one, Sora thinks to himself as Clammy cries over her defeat. It's just a game, Sora states with a conniving smile as he bets humanity's very rights as beings in a gamble against the Beastmen. Even with the inevitability of cheating the rules and systems in place, it's still a game in the minds of the otaku who buried themselves in their passion to realize so much of their potential, but they used them as an escape, retreating from the reality they dismissed into a world of games. But they were not the only ones to take the journey from reality to game, as that was simple history to the world they entered. That was the fate Riku was cursed with, existing in discord before the covenants that made it a paradise. Riku had an enjoyment for games even though he could never win, something all too applicable to his own life. He was a member of humanity, a small force only barely scraping by to survive, praying not to catch the eye of the much bigger powers interested in a battle for dominance that would lead to the complete destruction of the world. Every life he had to sacrifice to keep living weighed on his mind, driving home his lack of ability to find anything resembling victory. As a child, he irrationally believed anything was possible, but reality was not something where concepts like hope existed. Impossibility loomed like a shadow, effort would be fruitless, and humanity fought in an unwinnable battle. Unbalanced and broken, the world was a kusoge, a shit game. And yet, even when the chance of victory is small, there's that irrational desire to make the attempt regardless.
全ては起こりうる。確率論に0も100もない。所詮は机上の空論だ。
Despite his endless stream of failure, Riku still had some level of enjoyment in trying in spite of that. It didn't make sense, and yet he had that desire to move forward and build hope with his own hands. It couldn't be a blind persistence. Steph learned that lesson in the main series. Repeated attempts without meaningful change in approach or improvement meant nothing without purpose behind it. And even with nothing to hope for, Riku was ready to renew his efforts, change tactics, and try again. Anything was possible, effort could pay off, and no battle was truly unwinnable. It was childish and irrational, but at the heart of that sentiment was exactly what Shui was looking for from her bond with Riku. From a race of cold machines, a 0% chance should have meant surrender, yet she fought anyway. She put all her efforts into the impossible, turning that 0 into a 1. From the depths of impossibility, she pulled off the unthinkable and found the heart of humanity she was searching for. Even if it meant her sacrifice, her actions changed the course of the struggle. Riku gaining allies in the machines she moved through her values. She found her heart, and her discovery would pave the path to Riku's conquest. Seeing the factions waging war, he contextualized it all as one big chessboard, applying the same lessons he took from his fruitless matches with a god into the kusoge that was his reality. Because while games are constructs where logic can win out, reality needs the irrational. And as abstractions of reality, so do games. But effort still doesn't mean victory. Riku made his reality into a game, but he could not truly win by his own rules. He said that none of them would die, yet he could only move forward with more sacrifices. More names to his list of burdens. Shui and Riku could not truly see eye to eye, so the eternal loser still could not find victory despite all his efforts. But in winning that battle, but only through a loss in his goals and ideals, it was cancelled out. And he ended the game that was his life on a draw. He'd save the world. They'd save the world. But they would not live to see it. Not in this life. But even apparently reborn as Sora and Shiro, they did not carry over everything they knew and lived by. Something apparent even as Blank comes to master the mechanics of Disboard. Games are an abstraction of reality, and through that abstraction they are devices to teach. Through simplicity and order, they reveal logically that which they represent. The heart Riku and Shui discovered was one earned through learning from games the value of persistence. Through games, reality itself is broken down and understood. Riku found the will to fight and live through that. Because without those games to find the irrationality above the logic of their systems, there was no reason to live. But Shiro and Sora do not yet understand that value. Games were not a device of learning and understanding, but rather a reason to come to learn and understand in the first place. Games were an escape into a world where reality made sense and had logic one could grasp behind it, something they saw as completely rational despite taking actions others see as insanity in their efforts to win. Reality, with its risk of failure and bed of irrationality, was frightening to the two geniuses who secluded themselves from it. Yet in a new world they rise to the ranks of rulers who plan to challenge gods. Under the abstraction, it's less real, less frightening. It's just a game. They take their trip to Disboard as an excursion to paradise, a world that finally makes sense, one they will gladly take over the original world they fear, as the mere possibility of returning there grips them with trauma. But the reality they left isn't so adverse to logic. They merely fear the world they had no hope in, deciding that the only winning move was not to play, even though play is how one comes to learn. Through fear, they gave up on a chance for knowledge even though they have the capability. They simply have yet to see through the abstraction. Their arc may be a ways off from being complete, but without what one can take from the games they play, there is no life. This video is brought to you by editors, paid through patrons such as Moz, Gloogle, Winchester, Luis Segura, Mohammed Hakim, Tengoon, Flarbu, Oliver Mort, and the Sewer Boy. Thank you for watching, and look forward to next time.